Well, hello and a very warm welcome. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on this very special webinar to explore and unpack Amazon Prime, to see what's happened during Amazon Prime days over the course of the last few weeks in various different places around the world. My name is David Roth from WPP, and it's my pleasure to host this broadcast together with John Bird, Executive Director of VML Y&R Commerce. John, thank you very much indeed for joining us quite late in the day where you are in Australia.
Yeah, glad to be with you, David. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever everybody in the world is at the moment. But yeah, it's a little late at night here, but glad to be part of it.
Well, we have a great cast for you. They're all experts and specialists in their individual fields. To help us unpack and really understand what Amazon Prime is all about, the opportunities that it presents, and probably most importantly, what we can learn from this year's activity, maybe what it tells us about the holiday season that will soon be upon us and clearly is phenomenally important for many brands right across the world. So during the course of this webinar, we'll be hearing from Michelle Whelan, Megan Happen-Janis, Ignacio Mays, James Galland, and we'll be introducing those during the course of the broadcast. But perhaps, John, we can start by giving maybe a little bit of context about, why is Amazon Prime Day so important?
Well, I mean, it's because of Amazon's size and influence. I mean, Amazon now is the world's second biggest retailer behind Walmart. And really with Prime Day, over the last few years, they've created a new marker in the annual shopping calendar. And what we're seeing now is that, other retailers are joining the party, either to get ahead of Prime Day or to combat Prime Day in their own way. So it really is a significant new day or a significant new event that really wasn't there before.
How many Prime members are there at the moment?
There are over 200 million Prime members worldwide,
well,
Amazon says.
Not a bad pool of people to draw from for a shopping festival.
No, it's about the population of Brazil, if you want a fun fact. So yeah, not a bad pool at all.
Now, Amazon Prime Day kicked off in 2015. I think you were in New York at the time.
Yeah, they started it. The whole idea in the first place, or the way they announced it, was to celebrate Amazon's 20th anniversary at the time. And, the intent was that it was both a sales driver, but also, of course, importantly, a Prime membership acquisition tool. And that's proved to be enormously powerful, because if you can sign members onto Prime to join in Prime Day, lock them into the ecosystem, then you get that famous flywheel effect that Jeff Bezos was always after. And yeah, you're right. I was in New York on that first Prime Day in 2015, and I happened to be on Fifth Avenue passing FAO Schwarz, the famous toy store, which closed down on that day. I know it's since reopened in a fashion, but the original one closed down on that day. And I thought, this really is a bit of a passing the baton from old retail to new retail. And since that time, we've really seen Amazon strengthen its position as a power brand.
Well, that's probably a good time to take a little bit of context about Amazon, the brand, through the lens of WPP's BAV, the world's largest and most authoritative brand analytics platform. And who better to speak with about that than Ignacio Mays, the Insight Manager, Strategy and Innovation of BAV at WPP. Ignacio, very nice to speak to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, David. Very nice to speak to everyone.
Now, for those people not familiar with BAV, how would you describe it?
So BAV is simply the best way to get a deep understanding of how a brand or its competitors are doing in the marketplace. We have data on the power of brands in over 50 markets and over 30 years, measuring the power of brands in culture, how those brands are perceived by consumers, as well as other metrics like advocacy, love, and many others that drive brand success. And
Now,
BAV as a
BAV is what,
platform.
30 years old. Happy birthday, BAV. It's
Yeah.
been tracking the Amazon brand since 1999, a few years after Jeff created it. How would you describe Amazon's brand journey?
Well, we all now know Amazon as the global behemoth of retail, but that wasn't always the case. I mean, I think it was quite surprising looking at the data that when we started measuring the Amazon brand in 1999, only 11% of the US market had used Amazon at that point, which was similar usage to what we see for current up and coming retail brands like Sola or Shopbop today. And Amazon has always been perceived as a hip, bold, and inventive brand, scoring at the top of the US brand list in all three metrics, even back in 1999. But it wasn't until the mid-aughts that Amazon started becoming a more dependable, accessible, and purposeful brand to, to the point where it is today. So now Amazon is one of the US brands with the most users overall, at over 83% of total usage in the market.
Now, you were one of the architects behind the recent BAV launch of the BAV Most Influential Retail Brands 2023, launched at this year's World Retail Congress. What's the essence of being an influential brand, and why is that so important?
Well, so Most Influential Brands is a new BAV at WPP strategic framework that pinpoints your brand influence in a set of key areas. And it explains how you can change consumer expectations, establish better relationships, and best succeed in the marketplace.
Now, Amazon is one of the most influential retail brands and also one of the most influential global brands. How's it earned its place in two of the most prestigious rankings?
You're right, David. So over the years, Amazon has been at the center of so much change and evolution in the world of retail. So from its always-on operating model, its unparalleled ease of use and customer benefits through offerings like Amazon Prime, it has earned a spot at the top of the market in terms of things like innovation, value, and being seen as a contemporary brand. So these are the most salient aspects of the Amazon brand today, and through them it is able to shape consumer expectations on how to compete in those areas. So now all retail brands have to answer the how do we compete with Amazon question, because they effectively set the rules for what it means to play in areas like innovation or value, not just in the online retail space. So that is the power of influence, and that's why Amazon excels at it. And for everyone attending, we have a gift for you, a graphic novel for the Amazon brand personality story, which will be available as a link after the event.
So Amazon Prime Day might have finished, but the gifts keep on giving. Ignacio Mays, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you so much, David.
So now let me introduce James Galland, who's the Global Commerce Director for Amazon and Marketplace at VMLY&R Commerce, based in London, but he's been keeping an eye on the world of Amazon. Since Prime Day last week, James has been crunching the numbers and gleaning the insights. So please welcome James in conversation now with David Roth.
James, thanks very much indeed for joining us. I'm glad you've come out of the darkened room with all the numbers and the analysis pouring in. You are by far the best person to give the most expert understanding of what's happened over the course of the last week or so. So how would you categorise this year's Amazon Prime? I mean, you know, the numbers, the anecdotal evidence, was it successful?
Yeah, thanks, David. Thanks, John. To roll out an old football, or for our American friends on the call, soccer adage, it really was a tale of two halves for Amazon, with on one side, the mature markets performing steadily, if unspectacularly. So the US was up 6.1% year on year, but that's below Adobe's forecast of 9.5%. This is above inflation, so it was still a robust performance, but it's not necessarily setting the world alight. The UK came in at 2.4% growth, which is actually quite significantly below inflation at 7.9%. So with the mature markets, it's a bit of a hit and miss environment. However, on the other side of the scale, if you look at global performance, Amazon's absolute volume grew 25% to 375 million units year on year.
So where's that growth coming from then?
It's all coming from the emerging markets. So if you look at Brazil's performance, it was up 50% year on year. These markets are rich opportunities for brands and for Amazon as they look to drive their penetration and unlock new growth opportunities.
Now, how big or significant are those emerging markets now? I suppose the fact they're called emerging markets means they're not huge, but are we seeing growth in those areas? And do those areas represent growth for brands and clients?
Absolutely. So the US still remains over half of Amazon's total business. However, these emerging markets are scaling at pace. So for Amazon, although it's a costly model, this is where their growth is going to come in the coming years. And for brands, it's a rich opportunity to actually drive both their experience and their value sales in this space.
Now, this year we saw more innovation coming from Amazon Prime Day. I think a lot of us have felt for a while that it's becoming, very samey and unbelievably predictable. But there's a lot of innovation in the US in particular. What is that innovation, and what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think this is the year Amazon really stepped up to the plate to try and compete with the leaders in this environment. So Alibaba's 11/11 day. Amazon launched its own version of TikTok earlier this year. So that's Amazon Inspire. And they pushed it heavily on their channels. So if you're in the US, you would have seen it everywhere. Social content, which is highly immersive, backed up by celebrity endorsement. And if you look at TikTok itself, the amount of traffic that was driving search to Amazon was up 115% year on year. It's huge.
So let's take for those people who haven't seen anything from Amazon Inspire, let's just take a quick look and maybe you can talk us through it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's solely in the US at the minute, but for those who have the Amazon app, you can scroll directly to their Inspire platform and effectively, like TikTok, you just scroll your way through video after video after video, but it gives you the direct option to purchase when you're on the video link itself. So you may have seen the celebrities endorsing their own range. It was a direct point transaction on the platform.
Now, James, what would you say the real strategic benefit of Amazon Prime Day is? I mean, it really can't just be lots of volume at really low margins.
No, from my days as a sales lead, margin is all you hear. And the way I'd look at it is Amazon Prime Day is not a margin driver. It's not accretive. It is going to hit the bottom line. But the role and strategy behind the event is not to drive your bottom line. It's to drive penetration, to drive new to brand, and crucially with the algorithm, to drive the halo effect on the back of the day itself. Those who win see a sustained win in this space.
Perhaps you could talk a little bit about that all-important algorithm. What is it about your performance during Amazon Prime period that then impacts the way in which the algorithm potentially works in your favor?
Of course. If you look at a traditional shelf, it's static. You buy a unit, it has no impact on the following day unless there's going to be a range review. If you look at the Amazon A10 or algorithm, it rewards performance over time. So you're building a sustained strength and on the organic visibility of your range on site. So if you perform extremely well on Prime Day, that increase in conversion, that increase in volume and sales velocity will then lead to a much stronger organic position on shelf in the following weeks.
Now, we've seen quite a lot of innovations in the area of additional revenue, so in a sense non-traditional revenue during Prime Day with some of Amazon's new partners. And I think a very interesting strategic move into clearly the much higher margin areas of services and experience. James, what does that tell us?
Yeah, it's a favorite topic of mine. When Kroger was looking to acquire Albertsons, in their press release, one of the key points they referenced was the rise of alternative revenue. Last mile delivery is extremely costly for any online business. Capgemini has it about 41% of all logistics costs. So if you look at Amazon's traditional heartland, it's not a profitable venture. However, you may have seen retail media everywhere in your newsfeed. Alternative revenue, so services, can boost a profit margin of around 80 to 90%. So one, it is driving great experience for the shopper. They're looking for it, but it also helps bolster the online retailer's bottom line.
Now, I suppose here's an interesting dilemma in a sense. When is a deal not a deal? What does Amazon Day activities and Prime activity tell us about what consumers are looking for today and their motivation to spend?
Yeah, it's a very much a hot topic at the minute. McKinsey estimated that 80% of shoppers would have to adjust their spending behavior this year. We expected to see a real transition down into private label. So 50% of shoppers have used private label in the last 3 months. However, Sky was showing that 63% of shoppers were actively waiting for Prime Day, and that 69% of them would still spend as much as they did last year or more this year on the event itself. So when we talk about deals being true value propositions, if they can drive experience, if they can drive a sense of true value and cut through, the shoppers will buy it.
Now, Prime generates a huge amount of volume, and a huge amount of volume in turn generates huge shipment. And as you just said, the last mile is where a lot of money is potentially lost, but then potentially made if you can do it well. What are we seeing in terms of that last mile delivery at the moment from Amazon Prime that may well filter through to other online and other retailers as well to reduce that last mile delivery cost?
Absolutely. It goes hand in hand again with creating great experiences and boosting the bottom line for the retailers. Curbside delivery became extremely popular in the US over COVID. That was up to 20% of all orders this year on Prime Day itself. Amazon really is a tech company. It's an ecosystem of propositions. So they will look to provide any access point where the consumers are looking to buy. And I would say one of the most interesting trends is actually buy now, pay later. We've seen that that's increased 20% year on year. In the UK, that now represents a whopping 13% of all orders.
Now, what do you think the future brings for Amazon through the lens of what you've just witnessed across Amazon Prime?
I think we're at the start of the journey. If you look at where Amazon is today versus, for example, Alibaba, when it comes to sales events, it's very much in its infancy. Prime Day is still transactional. It's trying to create great brand experiences. But what we've seen with Inspire, so the TikTok proposition, is only the first foray into this area. It's going to continue to develop, and great brand experiences are going to be at the center of everything Amazon does.
So now I'm going to pin you down. What are your top 2 takeaways that we should take away from this year's Amazon Prime Day 2023 that we should also reflect upon as we approach the all-important 2023 holiday season?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I'd say value is essential. We've talked about whether a deal is a true deal and if it's transparently cutting through. Consumers are avidly searching online. Half of shoppers will check prices on another website as well as Amazon to make sure they're getting a good value proposition. If you are not providing value on deal events, don't come to the table. It will create the wrong perception, but if you can unlock it, it will give the cut through you're looking for. Secondly, experience. If brands can really create immersive capturing experience that we've seen some great FMCG examples of this year, you will stand out on a shelf which is filled with thousands of deal opportunities. For the Black Friday Q4 season, build into those brand moments.
Well, James, thank you very much indeed. We could carry on talking for ever, but we have to draw this part of the programme to a close. James, Global E-Commerce Director of VML Y&R Commerce, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you, David.
The US is the major market for Amazon, of course, as James just told us. So we're thrilled to have with us live from the States, in fact, I think from Cincinnati this morning, her time, Megan Hoppenjans, Group Director, Commerce, Customer Experience, Strategy and Insights for VML Y&R in the US. So from the front line of Amazon Prime, please welcome Megan, again in conversation with David Roth.
Well, Megan, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, David. Glad to be here.
Now, I suppose, Megan, it could be argued that in Europe, Amazon Prime Day has sort of become very predictable and maybe a little bit dull. Whereas we're now seeing signs of Amazon Prime Day innovation coming from Amazon's biggest market by far, the USA, in various different aspects of this year's activity, and James is talking about a little bit of those. So I suppose the implication of this is we should all be expecting that those innovations, the ones that have worked well, presumably in 2023, to be rolled out right across the world in 2024. So, Megan, what do you see those key innovations being?
Yeah, thanks, David. We saw a number of them this year, and I think, to echo James's sentiment, this was a year where Amazon kind of came to the table and tried to change the game in meaningful ways a little bit. So the first big one that he mentioned that you guys showed a little clip of, which was fantastic, is Amazon Inspire. So this was the first year that we had Inspire on platform for Prime Day, kind of complementing and continuing with that TikTok and other social media platform driving there. So we really got to see kind of how did Amazon use that within their weaponry. We got to see how did brands use that and influencers from a content perspective really kind of step up to the plate. What was the role of deals and how did deals present themselves within Inspire separately from other buying moments? And how did consumers engage and what was the receptivity to that? So a lot of fantastic learnings and information there from Inspire as we think about leveraging that kind of closer to the platform in the shopping moment, very high conversion rate tactic that's available. Among other things, we saw even more deeper personalization across the platform. So Amazon has always kind of led with personalization, but we saw them take it to another new level in the US. So they really came out with invitation only previews and deals that were only to certain Prime members from an invitation perspective. We saw them reimagining the way that they use lists, reimagining the way that they use buy again and thinking about repeat purchase. We saw them use a more targeted approach to Amazon Live than they had used last year. Last year, Amazon Live was very much a blanket approach. This year was a much more kind of targeted approach. And so we saw them change the game in some of the ways there. We also saw them kind of come forward with some things that consumers have been keen on this year as it relates to searchability and refinement by small businesses. So how might they elevate small businesses? How might they support small businesses alongside some of the bigger brands? So some really interesting search capabilities, refinement capabilities there, among others. And I think it was talked about a little bit in the services conversation as well, but new partnerships and new services coming through from the deals perspective when we think about the partnership they put forward with Priceline around travel. So really tapping into that consumer trend that's continuing post-pandemic around recreation, getting back to travel, bringing people together, and coming up with new and different partnerships and deals in that space that, again, are very margin accretive when we think about the fulfillment necessities there.
Now, there was also a pre-Prime Day period. Tell us a little bit about that and also what are the implications of a pre-Prime for brands and clients?
We saw a couple of key activities happening in the pre-Prime Day period in the US today. Some of those were from Amazon themselves. So some of them were about, again, those invitation-only offers that they had kind of gearing up. We saw in the results as well that it looked like very much a lot of planning went into day one shopping for shoppers. So a lot of our results from a return on ad spend and others within that space were really showing us that day one was planned for shoppers. They had a plan going in. They were going to convert against the things that they were intentionally seeking out. Day two was much more of a browsing and an exploration and an inspiration and a discovery day. So we think that pre-Prime period and the activities that Amazon did in that space were noteworthy there. Also contributing and driving to that was what competition was doing. And so this year, July 11th and 12th, very close to the 4th of July, Independence Day holiday in the USA, which is traditionally a very big retail tent pole and sales driving day. And so we saw a lot of retailers try to get out ahead of Amazon, especially those that were competing primarily just on the deal itself, those like Best Buy and Electronics and some others. And then we saw other competitors like Target and Walmart think about how they leverage their membership platform. So Target Circle Week was their play this year. Walmart Plus Week was their play this year. So really leaning into that membership program, really leaning into kind of that flywheel that John talked about at the beginning, the acquisition strategy coming forward in new and different ways. And that was really intended to kind of hit a little bit before Prime Days, continue through Prime Days, and give the consumers that ability to compare and contrast and come in to Prime Day, especially Prime Day day one, with a sense of what they were targeting and a sense of where they were going to find that value across the marketplace in the US.
Now, we really did see a lot of Amazon's big competitors, as you've mentioned, getting out ahead of Prime Day, and as you've said, also sort of using their loyalty programs. Have their loyalty programs, in a sense, come of age now? And does it give them the runway to compete at the same level of Amazon in terms of personalization or relevance or repeatability?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and I would say my answer on have they come of age would be certainly not yet. I think we are in many ways just still at the infancy, right, or the incarnation of that across the marketplace more broadly. But they are at a position now with the way that they have built these membership programs, with the way that the membership programs are built on the massive amounts of data that they have and the personalization that they can offer, as well as their deep relationships and partnerships with brands and with the products that they have available, that they are seeing themselves as worthy competitors. And so they are not going to kind of let Prime Day come to the market and have its heyday. They're going to come as soon as their membership programs are ready for prime time, which is now, which is in this moment. And they're going to use that same target that Amazon had originally with the membership acquisition flywheel that John talked about earlier to really put things into play in a different way. And so we saw that from Target with Circle Week. We saw that from Amazon with Amazon Plus Week. Smaller scale, we saw that in grocery with Kroger Boost and some others. But definitely, I think we're just on the cusp of seeing this play out, not just as a deal event, but also as a membership event and also as when I'm thinking from the brand's perspective, right, how much are the customers worth to me in these different ecosystems? And what is that halo effect that James talked about that's going to come afterward within these retail ecosystems? So I think we are just on the cusp of really seeing not just the deal event play out, but the membership event play out more holistically.
Now, James talked a little bit about Amazon moving into services. Obviously, that requires sort of a deeper level of ecosystems within Amazon. How do you view that whole relationship of now tying product and service together?
Yeah, I think we're seeing them do it across a number of different vehicles. And I think it shows up differently in the day-to-day relationship with their consumers and their shoppers than it does in kind of the event circumstance. So in the event circumstance, we saw some interesting things like we talked about Priceline and travel, really leveraging that kind of partnership that they have around recreation products in that space, continuing to do extremely well coming out of the pandemic years. In the day-to-day, we see it more in kind of the everyday essential side. So we really see them leaning into pharmacy. We really see them leaning into health services. We really see Amazon Clinic taking a new and different approach to the market from an alternative revenue, but also from a consumer ecosystem perspective. So I think something to watch over the coming years is how do they think about that, both from the day-to-day ecosystem, but then how do they amp up and get creative and think about how they bring certain pieces and parts of that to the market when it comes to events more specifically, where that tie between product and service can be greater when they really are converting on those product deals in differentiated ways.
Now, I can't really let you leave without asking you this one, which is who benefits from Amazon Inspire? Is it Amazon, the brands, or the content creators?
Yeah, well, if you listen to Amazon, right, we're going to say it's a win-win-win, right? So I think there's this perception that it's good for everybody across the business, and certainly it's good from Amazon, right? They're able to take a piece of that business, other social platforms, and bring that into their ecosystem holistically and keep a bit of that within the platform itself. I think from a content creator perspective, it's great what we're seeing, of course, because they're in that shopping moment, because they're on platform, because the algorithms do work as hard as they do. Conversion is very high. So there's going to be, I think, good returns there for those who are able to perform in that space very, very well. I think from a brand perspective, that's the job to be done, or that's what we're figuring out right now, because ultimately when you think about where the support for that engine comes from, it really is the manufacturers and it really is the brands, right, who are going to fuel that ultimately from behind. And so it's really making sure that we do that in an efficient way, that we do that in an effective way, that we understand the returns that are there. And we're thinking about what is the role of Amazon within the broader influencer ecosystem, and how do we make sure that we're having the right balance across that business to drive it holistically.
Well, ever thus in the world of retail, the manufacturers end up having to fuel all of this. Megan,
right.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Phenomenal
Thank you,
insights. Group Director, E-commerce Experience Strategy for VMLY&R in the US. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you, David.
How about delving deeper into retail with the history of retail in 100 objects? Download our virtual experience app and visit the objects on display that show how retailing has always mirrored and fed into the society it serves. Proof that innovation and retail have long gone hand in hand, with retailers being the first to adopt new technologies. Then take a wander down the World Retail Congress Hall of Fame and be inspired as you hear from retail legends as they talk about their lives, beliefs, strategies, and commercial objectives, as well as the high and low points of their careers. Download the app here and journey through the innovative, surprising, and always fascinating world of retail.
Now let's go across the pond to Michelle Whelan in London, who's not only co-CEO of VMLY&R in the UK, but also CEO of VMLY&R Commerce there. I had the pleasure of spending a little bit of time with Michelle in London recently. She's a real expert on both retail and commerce in that market. So to provide a perspective on Amazon Prime Day in the UK and Europe, please welcome Michelle, again with David Roth.
Michelle, thank you very much indeed for joining us. It's cold and miserable in London today, isn't it? Michelle, we have sort of heard about Prime Day 2023. It's been successful, but it, of course, is only one of the elements of the armoury of Amazon. What do you see as the direction of Amazon, and where's it going?
Firstly, thank you, David, and thank you, John. Lovely to be here. It's always super exciting to hear about what the US is doing with Amazon. And I think Megan gave us a brilliant overview of all of the innovation that we're seeing from Inspire, the TikTok-inspired in-app application, through to the expansion into services and health. And I think John touched on it slightly earlier when he referred to Alibaba, but I see Amazon as becoming an entertainment, social, and increasingly a media platform. You know, we heard from our colleagues this morning as well that in Asia, marketplaces are highly competitive and innovative spaces. They are creating content, entertainment experiences that are akin to big Disney platforms or Spotify platforms. And I think now, to really capture the attention of young audiences in particular, which we know Amazon is very concerned with, we have to start to look at Amazon as a social and entertainment and a media platform.
Now, one of the great benefits of talking to you, Michelle, though, it's always very nice to have the opportunity to talk to you, is you have a really good perspective of what's going on, not just in niche areas of retail, but right across the retail piece. So given what you've just said about the direction of Amazon, what should we expect to see from Amazon, and what does that really tell us about the future of e-commerce?
Well, James and Megan have set this up brilliantly for me. In one word, I think the future of e-commerce is social, David. When we look at the role of social influencers, commerce influencers in this space, we're seeing huge amounts of growth as influencers are connecting brands with people. And particularly given the scale of Amazon and some of the growth that James talked about in emerging markets, it's a real opportunity for brands to connect to new audiences in ways that they've probably never imagined that they could. one of the things that is really driving a lot of that growth with influencers is the diversity that they bring to e-commerce. We're seeing influencers connect people to products that are of similar values to them, that share similar behaviors to them, whether it's from different ethnic backgrounds, whether it's from different markets, whether it's from different geographical locations. It's really all about connecting people to brands and products that they value. And it's the influencers that are really doing that. Megan touched on it when she talked about the creators that we see and inspire, and they will have a really significant role on the Amazon platform as e-commerce and social commerce, as we're starting to call it, really grows and expands.
And how easy is it for platform brands to sort of give up what we could call it their power, or at least maybe their planning, to the hands of social influencers, which is slightly hit and miss?
Not easy, right? I think for any brand, and we've heard, a lot from Ignacio on the power of brand love, the power of brand trust. So it's not easy for any brand to do that. But we have the benefit of learning from TikTok. We know that creators play a significant role in making brands more personal, more relevant to younger audiences. And because we've got that experience and because we're starting to get those learnings from TikTok, I think brands can now start to work with creators who share similar values with brands in much more authentic ways. I think gone are the days, David, where we're in that situation where brands are just pushing out messages to people, expecting people to really, truly, I suppose, build relationships with those brands. Now it's very often those creators that are creating the bridge between brands and people. So it's not easy, but I think it's a must-do and something that brands really need to start to adopt going forward.
Now, having spent a lot of time living in Asia myself, especially China, it's always frustrated me a little bit about how Amazon really hasn't pushed very hard on the accelerator in terms of using the digital platform to engage with brands. Amazon Prime Days gives brands an opportunity to stand out from the crowd. How can the magic and the power of creativity be really truly harnessed to create not just transactional commerce interaction, but engaging commerce experiences?
That's a great question. I think broadly we're seeing many brands double down on creativity in the commerce space. And I'm just going to segue for a minute to the Cannes Lions Festival that we've just had last month here in France. And one brand that actually, two brands I'll talk about. One brand won a Gold Lion, and they are a Lunchables brand. So essentially they provide basics for lunch boxes. And they brilliantly leveraged Amazon by creating fun toys out of Lunchables. So these beautiful creations of toys that all kids could build from their lunchbox. But the genius part of it was a one-click shop. So they used the Amazon fulfillment in order to be able to deliver all of the ingredients to people who were essentially buying fun toys and, made out of shapes of all kinds of different foods. So I thought that was an amazing way for brands to really leverage the Amazon platform, understand that you've got to engage with kids, you've got to trigger their imagination, but then for parents to make it really, really easy to shop. As we look at Amazon, I think in bringing to life creativity across all of the moments, Amazon is genuinely an end-to-end platform. We search on the platform, we trial on the platform, we educate ourselves on the platform. Sometimes we purchase on the platform and sometimes we don't. But I think when brands are thinking about that journey on the Amazon platform, each one of those moments is an opportunity to create an experience. James said it brilliantly earlier. Experience first is what commerce is all about, and leveraging each one of those moments to really engage with the shopper, show the shopper that you really understand what they're looking for, and then deliver a brilliant experience to drive that conversion is what building brand love is about, is what brand engagement is about, and definitely driving that conversion.
Now, we, I think, spend a lot of time optimizing e-commerce in many different forms, and we've become very good at it. What's the balance now between optimization and brand building, enhancing commerce experiences?
I think the short answer to that is that the balance is both. So when you look at the different types of shoppers, and particularly the Prime Day sales event, it will target shoppers like myself who are subscribers to Prime. I'm quite goal oriented. I actually loved all of the personalization on the platform this year. All of the deal tiles were personalized to my behavior with some suggestions from Amazon. And it was the first time that I really recognized the power of the Amazon data platform and how they could curate deals based on my previous shopping behavior. And I think that level of optimization can only get better for people as they continue to shop on the platform. When it comes to people coming onto the platform from TikTok or even Inspire, where you've already experienced something from a creator, that experience needs to be seamless on the platform. So someone coming from TikTok doesn't want to land on a product page. They want an experience when they arrive on the platform. So I think building commerce experiences is equally as important as optimizing the experience for me. And I think the challenge for Amazon and for brands on the Amazon platform will be getting that balance right as we go forward.
Well, Michelle, thank you very much indeed. Very incisive as ever. Michelle Whelan, CEO VML Y&R Commerce UK, and the co-CEO of VML Y&R in the UK. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Well, John, how can we possibly sum up all of that? But that is our task.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a fascinating conversation with all the guests this morning. I mean, I think summing it up, we saw that Prime Day sales increases were flat to marginal in mature markets like the US and UK, but with really greater gains in those new and emerging markets, which, as James said, is where growth is going to come from in the first place, at the next stage. At the same time, it was pretty significant. I mean, the Prime Day was the biggest sales day for Amazon ever in the US, as it was in markets like Brazil and Australia. But 4 prime observations, perhaps, and 4 prime opportunities that I just scribbled down. The first one was affordability rules, and we heard this time and again. The consumer's under pressure. Amazon and brands came to the party. We saw the return of wow deals for the first time ever, those invite-only specials, the rise of buy now, pay later. All of those were really important. They'll continue to be important. Secondly, inspiration as well as information is important. I mean, there was more emphasis on engaging shoppers, most notably in the US, but that'll flow through to other markets, and most notably in social. Thirdly was this level of hyper-personalisation, which Michelle just talked about on a personal level, that deal tiles were targeted at her based on purchase habits and behaviour rather than serving up generic offers, and using that massive database was really evident in Prime Day this year.
Yeah, and I think if you can merge that hyper-personalisation with offering extraordinary value, that's a very potent combination. Totally
right. And the final thing that I thought was really interesting was this new Prime partnership. Beyond product and price, Amazon partnering with Priceline in the UK. And for shoppers, that was a chance to save on experiences. And as James rightly said, also for Amazon, it was a chance to gain incremental revenue and crucially, more profit. But there was a theme and experiences coming through generally, wasn't there? That yes, there was a partnership in terms of experiences, but also the importance of just delivering a great experience overall.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that excites me the most about what I've seen this year. It does feel like that Amazon at last really begun to understand that there is transaction and then there's experience, and the two things can live happily together.
Yeah, as as you and I have experienced it with 11.11 in China, which really takes it all to another level, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of the prime opportunities, I mean, number one, start planning for Prime Day next year now, but
Indeed,
also
it's
think
never
about
too early.
no, but also think about those cross-retailer strategies, because as Megan talked about, and it happened in a lot of different markets, there's a lot of activity around Prime Day. Secondly, as Michelle talked about, embrace a creative commerce approach. I mean, you can't bore people into buying, and brands that succeed best in Prime Day work really hard to stand out in the digital shelf. Third is, deliver genuine value, a real deal, because shoppers can spot a fake a mile off, and you've got to engineer genuine savings and time box those savings. And finally, which was something James talked about that really hit home with me, was think in a relational way, not a transactional way.
Yeah,
which is
I
what
think that's
Amazon's
really
done.
important.
Yeah.
This is not an opportunity to lose a lot of margin. This is a great opportunity to position your brand and your business for new heights during the course of the year.
Exactly. And his point with subscribe and save, I think, was well made, that if you've got, for instance, a brand with a replenishable product, well, sure, do a deal on the day, get the benefit post that with the halo of the algorithm, but then beyond that, tie people into subscribe and save and learn by what Amazon does. I mean, tie people into the ecosystem.
Well, it's been a fascinating 45 minutes. I'm afraid we are almost at the end of it. All it leaves me to do is to say thank you very much to our guests, Michelle, Megan, Ignacio and James, and of course you, John. Thank you very much indeed. We have created a resource site that you'll be able to get some of the content here and some others, as well as that present from Ignacio, and we'll be sending you the details of that, but it's wppbav.com/insights prime-opportunities. Now, of course, Amazon Prime Day and what we've heard today from Amazon is in the context of also what's going on generally in retail. The World Retail Congress was a few weeks ago, and from that we've also constructed 10 killer insights from the World Retail Congress, the place where C-suite retailers come and gather and discuss the issues of the day, and we are going to play out with those 10 killer lessons. But on behalf of me, David Roth from WPP, and John Bird, thank you very much indeed for being with us.